Christ calls us to be bold, but the world desperately wants us to be quiet. So how do you approach sharing your faith?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shieldmaidens podcast. This is the place where we hope you'll come to be raised up to be a warrior for Christ, while also learning how to fight back against the enemy. And the whole time we really just want to point you to Jesus. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Riley.
We are your hosts, and we're so glad that you're here today again to listen in. Before we get started, I'm just going to remind you to please subscribe on YouTube if that's where you're watching. If you're listening on the audio version, we'd love a review there. And we'd love for you to follow us on any of our social media
Yes, please.
apps as well. That really helps us out. But thanks for being here. We are really excited. We're going to get into this conversation because we always have a special guest with us, but today,
everybody's special.
Everyone's special.
But I'm excited.
But we're excited about this one. We're excited every week, but this one is really cool. We are going to get to talk with Seth Dillon, who's the CEO of the Babylon Bee, if you've heard of that. Riley was able to
blame it on me.
Connection with him. And so
in thoughts of being bold, I attended with some friends the Right to Life banquet here in Evansville back a few months ago.
Yeah,
I don't know, it was the summer, I think. And he was the speaker here. And he did an awesome job, of course, because he's really good at that. But then after the whole program was over, my friend and I, who is sitting behind the camera over there, Christina is her name, approached him and, invited him to be on. And like the incredible person that he is, he said yes. And we couldn't believe it, but he's here with us today.
Yes, from a distance,
Yes.
but that's hence the headphones. But we're really excited to get to share this with you, excited that he was here and just willing to talk with us about being bold for Christ and the avenue that he uses to do that and to share truth. This is awesome for us to be able to chat with you today. Thank you so much, Seth, for being here, meeting up with us virtually to do this.
Of course. Yeah,
we like to have people in person, but you probably don't want to come back to Evansville just yet. So
he was just here.
I travel too much. I like doing things remotely from my studio when I can get away with it.
I don't blame you
Thank you for accommodating.
Yes,
Of
thank you
course.
for doing
Well,
this.
we made this happen just for you. I just want you to know that we figured out how to work this. So thanks for challenging us.
Yes. Thankfully, we have Toby
That's
to fix it all for us. So if you want, we generally, obviously you are very well known, but we generally have all of our guests sort of just introduce themselves first for our audience in case that anyone doesn't know you. I don't know if you'd like to just introduce yourself however you want.
Sure. Yeah. I think you got my name already, Seth Dillon. I run the Babylon Bee, the world's most trusted, factually accurate news source, which is, becoming better known. We're more popular than The Onion at this point, which is hard to believe given that we're a conservative Christian satire site. But yeah, we've, I guess, I took over the Bee in 2018. I've been running it for the last, almost a decade now, which is crazy to think about, but we're getting there. And just fought the battle for free speech in the public squares. They were trying to censor us over the years and continued to try to just bring levity to the issues and speak truth to the culture through humor. That's what we've been doing since I got involved with the Bee, and even before me when the Bee started back in 2016. So my mission is pretty simple. I like to share the truth. I like to share the truth of the gospel, and the truth of, just what reality is in a world that's given up on reality and is now at war with reality. So that's me. That's what I've been doing for the last little while and hopefully for the foreseeable future.
I think that's awesome. So I have to know,
It's
have you
incredible.
always been this bold, or did you have to overcome a fear of speaking out?
Well, like on big stages, I guess that's maybe a different question than just interpersonally. I don't know. I've always enjoyed debate. So I've always liked to kind of get into the fray and discuss the issues. But I never had any experience at all with doing that on like a big stage, on a public platform. The first live TV interview I ever did after I took over the Bee and we were facing some issues with censorship. The first live TV interview I ever did was on Tucker Carlson in prime time.
That was
So,
Your first.
Wow.
that's just kind of like throwing you in the water and seeing if you can swim kind
That's
of a
the deep
situation.
end. Yeah.
And so I didn't really have a lot of experience with that, but as just running the bee, when I got involved with the bee, I knew that there was going to be a lot of public stuff going on where there was controversy, and I would need to be the spokesperson for that. I didn't realize at the time that I would have so many opportunities to engage with things like promoting Christian apologetics, advancing a pro-life position, dealing with some of the the cultural insanity that we've adopted. But when I saw the opportunities to do that and had a platform from which to do it, where I had people listening to me, I couldn't resist the opportunity to get in there and do what I could to fight back in the war against reality and reason.
Wow.
Love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, I mean, obviously you probably have a natural tendency towards that. Like you said, you like to engage in that sort of thing, but what a cool opportunity to do it and to bring, like you said, levity to situations that are sometimes otherwise ridiculous, maybe, or
it's an amazing opportunity. I say all the time. I was on Joe Rogan's show a few years ago. It's now been 3 years. This past August was 3 years. And to get to the point where, the bee had enough cultural reach and impact where someone like Joe Rogan was interested in talking to me and having me on that show. And then, we debated some of these issues and we disagreed on some things. But I think part of the reason, I will say this, part of the reason for boldness and a willingness to go out into those spaces and have those conversations stems from just really feeling confident in what I believe and why I believe it. I didn't know all the topics I was going to get into with Joe. That wasn't it wasn't an unfriendly interview, but it was more contentious than like, the Tucker stuff when he was a big fan of ours and was helping us. But you have to know what you believe and why you believe it, or you're not going to really be able to defend your positions very well. You're not going to feel confident to defend your positions. You might get squishy, try to seek some kind of compromise, or just feel awkward and get stuck. And so, it's important to be equipped with what you need to be able to say so that when you get into those moments where you have the opportunity to say it, you're ready.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice.
That's a very good piece of advice. And I feel like that can definitely be lacking. Like, we're in the Midwest, so we're kind of Bible Belt area. And we talk about this a lot, that a lot of people maybe grow up in the church or sort of in this, the morality sort of culture, but don't necessarily, they're taught something, but it's never been tested. So if they have to argue or defend their faith in any way,
they know just enough to twist it.
Yeah. And so that makes it, obviously that makes it harder to defend what you believe if you don't really know if you believe it, because someone else has told you to believe it.
You just inherited it from somebody else, and you've never had it challenged before.
Yeah.
One of the positives that comes from debate is not, I have the opportunity to beat someone over the head with the truth and convince them how wrong they are. It's presenting yourself with an opportunity where you can be challenged, and you're going to hear objections or criticisms and lines of attack that you hadn't heard before, and you can kind of learn and adapt to that. It's difficult to do that on the fly. You get better at it with more practice. But the more that you do that, the more equipped you are to have more conversations, and you're not just stuck in some kind of an ideological echo chamber where everybody agrees with you. You have to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and be willing to have those conversations with people who disagree with you. And recognizing that sometimes you're not going to have the answer. And it's best usually when you don't have the answer to just admit it and say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that, but I'm going to give it some thought, and I'll come back to you.
Yeah. That's another great piece of advice. If you don't know, just say, I'm not sure, but we can
it's
look
okay
into
to
it.
not know.
Yeah. You're the most, at least in my position, when you're doing like shows and stuff like that, where there's a little bit of reach and people watching, then, you can really easily end up in a viral clip moment where you say something stupid because you try to talk about something you know nothing about. So better to be, even more important to be mindful of that, the bigger the stage that you're on.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because even, we are a very small, new-ish channel, and we've had a couple of moments that it was a clip sort of taken out of context too, but it's easy for people to just
Pounce.
Yes. And it's, we've learned a lot through those couple of things. It's been a good learning experience. We'll put it that way. So,
let's create some controversial clips for them to pull out of context.
oh goodness. Okay.
Yeah,
Riley, what do you have?
No. Goodness. Yeah, I'm really good at that, actually. It's been me every time.
It's
okay.
not been her every time, but that's okay. It's okay. It
It's all right.
challenges you, like you said. It's good to be challenged.
Yes.
And if your faith or your beliefs are going to stand firm, you do have to be able to be challenged and still know where you stand. So
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Christ wants us to be bold, and the world wants us to be silent desperately.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you approach sharing your faith in situations where it might not be welcomed?
Well, what kind of context are you thinking of?
What about on a bigger platform, Joe Rogan-ish thing? You know, like you said, it wasn't necessarily
contentious.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But at the same time, he wasn't inviting me there to just, preach. So you have to be kind of mindful of the context that you're in
and your audience.
I like to. I never try to be too aggressive with stuff like that. I like to go into conversations with a willingness and an openness to go wherever the conversation is leading and kind of naturally find ways to address things that I want to address without forcing the issue. And sometimes people just invite you. I was on a podcast recently where I had a couple of secular Jews on the podcast with me, interviewing me, who were, they're basically asking me, well, what does it take to get to heaven? And what do you believe? Do you believe that we can get to heaven if we don't believe in Jesus? And can we just say the words? Do we need to actually believe them in our heart? And so it was like, you had questions like that are just setups to say, okay, well, here's the gospel. I'm going to answer you now. And you asked for it, by the way. You asked for it. So certain situations come up where it's just kind of natural. And it's easier, I think, in those cases. I don't think that you want to go out of your way to make things awkward and uncomfortable and try to force the issue. It's just more a matter of just being prepared to see those openings when that door cracks, that you can kind of push through it a little bit. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
I remember exactly what the question was.
Well, what about similarly, but in a different context, if it's a small, much smaller setting, or maybe even a one-on-one conversation that's not on camera, more of an evangelism sort of opportunity, that something just comes up in a conversation? Do you approach it the same way, like sharing your faith? I mean, I would imagine you're similar in that, like if it comes up and there's an open door, then you can take it the same way.
Yeah. I think probably similar approach, just kind of being ready for those opportunities when they arise, rather than just, going out of your way to make things uncomfortable for somebody who may want to, you can kind of read those situations usually up front to kind of get a sense for where people are at. I do think that there's been a tremendous opportunity provided to us right now where a lot more people are interested in having these conversations. And this is a really cool thing. That's one of these examples of how God can bring a lot of good out of something really bad, and in the aftermath of Charlie's murder. But even leading up to that, it wasn't just Charlie's murder. There was already kind of this, wave of interest, renewed interest in faith and religion and objective truth, as opposed to, the subjectivism and the relativism that we've been seeing in the culture. There was kind of a renewed interest in that already. And then, after Charlie's passing, I saw, Jesus' name was trending on Twitter, or X, sorry, for a while, and church attendance was up, and the memorial was just one person after another getting up there and preaching the gospel, and Bible sales are going through the roof. And so we're at a time right now. There was so much, and I've spoken to this a number of times recently, especially in the past year. There was such a deprivation of the good, the true, and the beautiful. There was such an effort to stamp all of that out in the culture that people became starved for it, I think, and they became hungry for it. And so they started seeking it in a very serious way. And so anyone who was willing to get up there and say it and present, here's an alternative, the people are looking for God right now. Let's make sure that they see him, that they find him, that they hear from him and hear his voice. And Charlie was one of the most prominent people out there, aggressively and eagerly and boldly doing that. and that's why we love him, and that's why he had such a tremendous impact. And so I think it should be encouraging to people that you're living in a time in particular right now where you're actually less likely to be scorned or ridiculed or mocked for professing your faith. There's a tremendous amount of receptivity to it, and so keeping that in mind might make you a little bit less nervous or hesitant.
I think that's a good perspective to have, because it's so easy to just get in your own head and get above the conversation, just like try to put words in other people's mouth. I know how they're going to respond, so I'm not even going to say it. When really we should just give them a chance to prove you wrong. Like they could be open to the conversation.
Exactly. Chances are more often than not now they are.
And ultimately,
it's a very different environment than it was, when I was coming through college, 20 plus years ago. And the new atheist movement was on the rise. It was just seen as like intellectually silly and ridiculous to not just believe in Christianity, but to believe in God at all. Religion was, in the aftermath of 9/11, religion was really vilified as being this poisonous thing. That's Christopher Hitchens' argument. And so there was a lot of resistance and a lot of ridicule. And it was a very different environment than it is today. So I think people should be heartened by that.
Yeah,
I agree.
And ultimately, I think we have to remember that it's up to the Holy Spirit to change hearts in general. It's up to God to do the actual work of bringing people into his kingdom. We have to be obedient and do what he asks us to do and asks us to share. But, Lindsay is never going to change someone's heart,
That's right.
Unfortunately. But being obedient and sharing.
Yeah, but you can be an instrument that God uses.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like if I do what I know God has asked me to do and share the gospel, be an example, be a light, do what he's telling me to do, then that's my job. Yeah. And you're right. I think there's a great receptivity right now, especially younger people. I have a couple of teenagers, and my oldest son, I could see it very quickly in him and how it's affected. He's 15, he's pretty young still. So it's been encouraging.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah. What next?
So do you have any practical advice that you use for someone who doesn't feel bold, maybe hasn't ever spoken out, but wants to be able to share truth in love like you do, like Charlie does, like other Christian podcasters?
Well, maybe going back to something that I said a little bit earlier, I think preparation is really important. This is actually something that Charlie talked about a lot. He talked about the, how many books he reads and how important it is to kind of expand your mind and equip yourself. You can't be too prepared. And the more prepared you are, the more comfortable you're going to be. And so I don't think that's a step that can be skipped in the whole process. And so I would encourage people to, depending on what it is, if it's the political issues, the cultural issues, or biblical faith-related issues, you've got to spend your time wisely up front, really equipping yourself to go out there and be engaged. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself frustrated and embarrassed and nervous and afraid. So that's a big piece of it in terms of practical advice. That's something that everybody can do and should do. Other than that, it's just a matter of getting some experience and learning from it, and taking those chances, looking for those opportunities where you can engage, and being willing to put yourself in that uncomfortable position of saying, this is outside of my zone where I feel safe, but it's important. This is what I'm here to do. This is a calling, and the truth matters. And so if I have an opportunity, I'm going to take it. And I think when people do that, I don't know if you guys have, I've never been skydiving, but everybody that I've ever heard that talks about like skydiving, they always are incredibly afraid of doing it until they've done it. And then once they've done it, they're like, wow, that was exhilarating. That was really awesome. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to do it again. And sometimes it's just a matter of, facing that fear and taking that leap, and realizing it's not so bad as you thought. And then of course you're going to be willing to go back and do it again. So, man, maybe now I have to go skydiving so that I'm able to share that analogy with some experience.
I think it works for scuba diving too, because as you were saying that, I've never been skydiving, but I've been scuba diving. And I remember being desperately afraid, surprised that I was afraid, but afraid of watching the water go over my goggles. And so the first few times that I did it, I would have to close my eyes until I was underwater, and then I could open them, and it was like, oh, this is worth getting over the fear of actually like jumping in and sinking.
Yeah. How deep did you go?
I'm certified for 66 feet.
Ooh, okay.
66.
Yeah.
Which
a little
is
bit of pressure down there.
dark and pressurized. But there's cool things.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a great analogy. Either one of those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Well,
brave.
I've never been scuba diving either.
Yeah, I haven't done either one. I've snorkeled. That's about it.
All the things I haven't done. but I have been on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Hey, you know what? I can't say that.
Pretty incredible.
That was scary.
And now you're on the Shieldmaidens.
Now you're on the Shieldmaidens
you
podcast.
Really made it, Seth.
I was sipping whiskey during that one though to keep my nerves cool.
Well, we didn't say that.
Yeah.
Didn't you guys just do an episode on whether or not you should drink?
We did.
Not too long ago. Yeah, we did one not too long ago.
I checked your YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Well, you can thank me for that episode, unfortunately, because it was.
We didn't say you couldn't drink.
No, not at all. And I hold that conviction that that's between you and God. Like, I think it really has to be a personal thing. That's where I stand on that. But I know what God's dealt with me on it. So, yeah. And, again, like I said, I think that's probably that way with even being bold. Like, being bold for me is doing this podcast in general. Like, this is not my comfort zone whatsoever. This was not on either of our bingo cards when we started doing this. And it's definitely been a learning experience. Like you said, learning how to be prepared, have the answer. For me personally, I have to be really grounded in the word, in the Bible, and in prayer, and in just knowing, okay, God's asked me to do this, so I'm doing it regardless of what people think. But social media is an interesting twist with all of it, because we can get the sound bites, the clips that can be taken completely out of context and, go viral or whatever. And how have you noticed a difference? Like, I don't know how long ago you did the Tucker Carlson. How long? Well, you said you took over in 2018. Mm-hmm. Has social media changed in this time period where you felt you've had to change with it in your boldness or how you approach anything? Obviously, the free speech.
Social
suppression of that
tremendous amount.
Yeah,
I think one of the most obvious and radical changes in recent memory is the fact that these platforms have really loosened a lot of the restrictions that they used to have. Twitter/X in particular was very restrictive. There were a lot of things that you could say that would get you either temporarily suspended, locked out of your account, or permanently suspended. A lot of prominent public figures, including Donald Trump himself, had been permanently suspended. And so, it was not a platform for free expression. What that meant was that a lot of the nastiest, worst things that people could say or think and express in the marketplace of ideas was suppressed. And so it wasn't as much of a cesspool. It wasn't as much of a sewer, it was just all this hatred and vitriol and really nasty stuff. That's one of the downsides of honoring free expression, where even the most awful but lawful speech is accepted and allowed. One of the downsides is, of course, that you're going to have that. I mean, but it just kind of comes with the territory. It's one of those things that you have to be willing to accept and deal with. It's like just like free will itself. Free will is what makes evil and suffering possible, but it's also what makes all good things like joy and love and courage and sacrifice and compassion. All of those things are also only possible because they would be meaningless if you could only do those things. It's the fact that we have the choice to do those things or not that makes them meaningful when we actually do them. And so free will has its cost too. In fact, the cost of free will was sin, and the price that had to be paid for that was no less than the price of the life of Jesus Christ on our behalf. So there's a high cost to be paid for freedom, and we see that in the public square right now, where there's so much negativity out there. It's actually really hard to be engaged in it like I used to be, because it was more enjoyable when it was cleaner, but it was less free. And so that's a real struggle for me, the balancing act of just being able to say, this is what I wanted, this is what I asked for, we wanted freedom, and now we have it, and we have to cope with it. And it's just a matter of saying, okay, well, if there's going to be all this nastiness, I'm going to contrast myself to that. I'm not going to be that myself. And for all the bad ideas that are out there, I'm going to confront them and push back and advance the good ones so the bad ideas lose. And that's the responsibility that we have with our own freedom. So that's one example of how I've seen social media change. That's made it actually a lot harder. Not just harder in the sense that I'm dealing with more criticism, and I'm dealing with a lot more criticism, much of it extremely awful, and some of it rising to the level of death threats. But just from a perspective of do I have it in me to deal with this? It's like a dark cloud over my head. Like going on there is kind of discouraging. Seeing the worst of the worst all the time is not a lot of fun. So, but it's all the more necessary, I think, to have good speech out there countering the bad speech.
Yeah, we overcome the darkness with the light. So
we do.
Yeah,
and just like you said earlier, I mean, if you don't know what you believe, you can fall really easily to anything. And it's the same way if you don't know what you believe or what your mission is, if you go out there and post on social media just anything remotely controversial, people will eat you alive, and you'll just, I would just huddle back in the corner and be like, never again. Just kidding. Bye.
No, she's a lot bolder than you think. I'm the one hiding in the corner.
I have the tendency.
I do have one other piece of practical advice for people who are thinking about, engaging or are engaged in some of this online stuff. And I have to remind myself of this all the time. You're not always the purpose. You can't be engaging with someone strictly for the purpose of changing their mind. Like sometimes you're just trying to plant a seed. Sometimes you're just trying to sharpen your own ability to defend your positions. Sometimes you're saying it for the people who are observing on the sidelines. When you're on social media and you're engaged with somebody back and forth, there's people who are seeing that engagement. They're seeing the back and forth conversation, and the person that you're talking to may be, nasty or steadfastly opposed to what you think, and there's no way you're going to change their mind, at least not today. There may be other people listening in who are more receptive, who are seeing the good points that you're making and seeing the passionate, irrational, nonsense that the other side is putting out there, and they're weighing that against each other. And so you can have an impact on the people on the sidelines. And I think, that's one of the things that Charlie did so effectively when he was engaging people on campuses. Charlie never just went up there and had a microphone and no one else could talk. He had a microphone and he let other people come up to the microphone. And then he had a massive audience, a bunch of people that were there to hear him go back and forth with these people. And so he knew that he wasn't going to change the mind of everybody who stepped up to that mic, but he did change a lot of minds and hearts.
Yes, he did.
Of the people who were listening in.
That's a great point.
Well, and even in that, even people who don't speak out, maybe in a public setting, your kids are watching, or the little ones around you, or your neighbors, and they will see your reactions or see, the things you say and take that.
Yes. And even, I know we're talking a lot about media and social media, but in your real life too, where you're not on a screen or not with a microphone, but seeing your reactions behind all of that with, like you said, with your own children, your own family, your own real life friends that you're having discussions with. It's the same thing, our reactions and the way that we communicate with each other about something. So, yeah, it's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'm the one who's struggled a little bit more with being bold. It's just not my personality. Not that I'm afraid to share the truth, but, I don't know. I tend to be more in the let's just love everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of that all the time. I'm not proud of that all the time, but it's just how I'm wired.
And I'm a little more I like to watch debates, love to watch them, consumed hours of them. Don't necessarily love to be in them, but I'm learning.
She does great at it. And it's a continual learning process. So it's been good for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too, is you don't always have to be engaged in them.
Exactly.
You can share them, share them with your friends.
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there who are much better representatives of what I believe than even I am. And so I would defer to them and share what they've done and what they've said, books that they've written or debates that they've engaged in. those are useful tools. They're ways of saying, outsourcing your voice a little bit to somebody who's got a lot of experience and knowledge and is so articulate and coherent. It's like, well, don't listen to me, listen to this guy. He's got it all together.
Yes. Yeah, that's another great point. Yeah, because there's so much information out there, like you said, and so many people who are much smarter and wiser than I am. Yeah.
Yeah, someone that everybody can learn from. We've lost Charlie, but one of Charlie's close friends, and a close friend of mine too, is Frank Turek, and he runs an organization called Cross Examined. He's a Christian apologist, and he goes around on campuses and he co-authored I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, if you're familiar with that book, and he's just very good at this, and so I watch him and learn a lot from him.
I love watching Frank.
Do you have any other people that you would recommend?
For the debate stuff?
Yeah, or anyone that you closely follow that you learn a lot from that you would just recommend to our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many. I don't know if you guys saw Ali Stuckey's appearance on Jubilee, but she did an amazing job of, just engaging with kindness and compassion and understanding, and not being, her goal wasn't there. She wasn't there to just make people look silly and trip them up and beat them over the head with her arguments. It was to hear them out and engage with them and tell them why she thinks differently about something in a way that was respectful but also substantive. She's excellent at that. There's so many people. Going back to the old days of like I mentioned the New Atheist movement, everything from decades ago. There was apologists back then who were just running circles around the atheist. William Lane Craig comes to mind. I don't know if you've ever seen him debate an atheist, but he's just phenomenal at it. But he's more of like on the scholarly, level of the presenting a really well structured syllogisms and backing them up with science and philosophy. And I've learned a lot from guys like that too. So, but my favorite author in terms of just defining and defending and articulating what he believes and finding creative ways of expressing that make you think is C.S. Lewis by far. So read a lot of his stuff if you can.
Those are great recommendations.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that was a random question I threw in there.
It's all right. Yeah. I like random.
Yeah. But I mean, I thought, well, why not share your references that you or things that you use a lot with some of our audience? But okay. Do you have anything else right now?
Are there any circumstances where you can identify where it's not worth the fight, where you choose to hold your tongue maybe instead of speaking what you know to be truth?
That you kind of have to gauge on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
There are definitely times where I've held my tongue for a number of reasons, either because I just felt like the timing wasn't right. There was potential for misunderstanding potentially, or, if you're just too heated about something, and you're not going to be level-headed enough, or you're going to maybe, the conversation might devolve into something less than the level of respect and charity that you would want to have in a back and forth. There's definitely been times where I made the mistake of getting into it when I shouldn't have, and where I made the right call and decided not to. That would be more on, I guess it's really case by case with that, because there's just so many different contexts where you'll have to make judgments like that, where I do anyway, because I'm constantly commenting on a lot of things. But for every tweet that I send, for example, there's probably 10 or 12 that I don't.
I'd like to see those.
To know.
You want to get a look at my unsent drafts. That's where the really interesting stuff is.
You should send us those after this. Awesome. No, that's a great answer, and that's kind of what I feel like I would have expected, like just a case by case.
Yeah, have a filter, and that's a scriptural thing too, is being slow to speak, quick to listen and slow to speak. It's sometimes best to just absorb things and hear a lot of different things that are being said, and wait for the right moment to engage. Sometimes it's not the right moment just because of your own attitude, again, like I said, but also because, you may need to gather some more information and get some more context before you chime in on something. You might step in it if you don't do that. And so using that discernment and recognizing when is the right time, both for yourself and whoever you're talking to.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really
I have a
good.
question that I just thought of. You were talking about just hearing viewpoints, actually listening to the other people that you're speaking with, hearing their other viewpoints. Have you ever had a moment where you've gone in with one view that you were set on, you're sure was right, you've been challenged, and have like something major that you've changed your mind on because of something someone's challenged you with since you started this?
Ooh. Oh,
Sorry,
that's a
that's
very
an
good question.
off
Is
the
there
cuff
some major
question.
issue where I've changed my
Like
mind because I've been
yeah. And I'm sure
challenged?
there's a ton of small little
Mm-hmm.
things along the way because we all do that all the time.
Yeah, I'd have to
Um,
give that's some thought. I'm trying to think right now. I
and
would
if
admit it
not,
if I
I
thought
say
of
if
something.
not, it's okay.
Most of the big things, I haven't changed my position
Yeah,
on over the years recently because I just, they're
you're
pretty well
solid.
established for
Yes.
me, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I believe that God exists. I believe, I believe in Christianity and the
Mhm.
truth of Christianity, and I'm willing to defend that. The pro-life cause, which I've been very vocal about. I haven't really changed my mind on anything. Maybe, as I learned more about IVF,
Mm.
I initially didn't realize, what was at stake there and what was going on there. As I've had to learn more and educate myself on all of these biological processes and what this
Mhm.
means
Yeah.
and what's happening in this. There are specific areas where as I dug into it more, I was like, okay, I need to have a better idea of what my position is on this and
Mhm.
the ethics of this scenario. So my understanding of some issues like that has evolved over time. But most of the main issues that I comment on today, I haven't changed my opinion on. I have to
Yeah.
I may have to get back to you on that
No,
one.
it's okay. That was an off the cuff question. I just
Yeah, no, it's a
wondered,
good one. It's a very good one.
because
It's a
major,
healthy thing to be able to adapt and respond,
Yes.
yeah.
if you're wrong about something.
Yeah. Well, because
Um,
we always hope someone maybe on the quote unquote opposite side would eventually see your point of view and
Yeah.
change their mind. And,
right, right.
they're thinking the same thing. And,
So much of what I'm engaged with is on the left, though. Some of these
yes,
crazy ideas, like, yeah,
yes,
boys can become girls. Like, no
yes,
one's going to change my mind and make me think that they can,
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Yeah.
uh,
So you're talking
so
very extreme things most of the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Most of these
Yeah.
are for
Pretty
me,
hard
they are
lines.
pretty clear black and white issues. I realize there's a lot of nuance and a lot of gray areas on some things, but most of the things that I'm talking about, I think there's a clear wrong and right, a clear good and evil.
Yeah.
And so I haven't wavered on them too much. You'd have to probably dig down into things like, specifics of certain theological doctrines and stuff like that.
Right.
Like
Right.
whether it's end times prophecy or dispensationalism or whatever, the Calvinism versus Arminianism. Those kinds of in-house debates that we
Right.
have.
Right.
There's been evolution on some of those things over the years.
Sure. Which we're humans and we're
Yeah.
constantly learning, like I
Yep.
said. So, yeah. Well, thanks for indulging me on that question that I just threw
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I wandered around there a little bit, but I was trying to think as I
No.
was going just to see
Well,
where
that's
I
not
might
really an
land.
easy question either, unless there had been like a major
Yeah, you
shift.
would know if
You
you
would
changed your
know.
whole
Yeah.
opinion on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your whole worldview on a big opinion. But
That's right.
thank you.
Yeah, I haven't bought into a lot of the conspiracies. I saw that there was a ton of obviously there were a lot of conspiracies that came true to some extent. Conspiracies about the government working behind the scenes to censor us on these platforms. Well, guess what? They were. Like
Mhm.
things like
Surprise.
that. But I never started going down that path of everything is a conspiracy.
Mhm.
Like we never landed on the moon. The Earth is flat. Like
Like
Israel and the
everything
Jews are
they've
behind
told us.
everything,
Yeah.
like all that crazy conspiracy stuff that's going on right now on the right, where any possible thing that you can think of is the most likely thing that
Mm.
might have happened,
Mhm.
rather than the most obvious or simplest explanation, like an
Mm-hmm.
Occam's razor principle or something. So I haven't bought into any of that stuff. I have known some people who were crazy into the conspiracy stuff and have started to come out of it a little bit, which I think
Oh,
is a
interesting.
healthy development.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you can find almost anything, like you said, especially with social media. And
Yeah.
it's really, really easy to get sucked into some of the rabbit holes,
yeah,
the trails, and go down them. And one thing leads to another. But
yeah,
I've found personally, because I sort of have that personality, because I want to know the truth, I will look into things. But then my focus gets taken off where it needs
Yeah.
to be for the important things that are in front of me in real life, or what I know God has called me to do, you know, in
Yeah.
the day to day. So,
Well, one of the questions that I challenge people with when they start thinking along those lines is, if you're seeking the truth, there's ways of doing that. You want to go where the evidence is pointing. You don't want to go wherever your speculation, wherever you don't want to try searching for an answer that makes the people that you really don't like look as bad as possible.
Agreed.
And just start connecting dots because you find some possible way they might be connected. That's not truth seeking. It's really more narrative building. And so it can feel like truth seeking because you're asking questions, you're asking hard questions. But if your answers aren't based on something other than, reaching a predetermined conclusion that you like better than whatever other simpler explanation there might be, then you're not seeking the truth. You're seeking it's a confirmation bias thing. You're trying to prop up something as if it were true because you want it to be true. And
Great
that
point.
is being able to distinguish between those things in your own heart and mind is very important.
Great point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't have the true north in your life, God leading it, it's really easy to make that, to not have discernment, one, and to feel like you're going through muddy waters at all times, not knowing what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Thankfully, we do have the true north, and we can have hope that when things go south and the world gets crazier, because
it's crazy.
Yeah, we still have, like you said, we can overcome all the crazy and dark and negativity with the light that we do have and the truth that we do have. So, yeah. Thank you.
Good message. Good message.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being a light out there.
Yes.
Being so bold.
Yes, we're grateful for you. And I love that it brings comedy. We always need a little bit more.
It's okay to laugh at
levity
things.
and laughter in the
we didn't
chaos.
We talked about the more serious things today. But the comedy, that's something that's just, not only is it good for the soul to be able to just laugh sometimes instead of being sucked into all the darkness. But it also is an effective way of communicating the truth. And so
absolutely.
That's the mission with the bee, is to make you laugh, but also to make you think. There's a great quote, Harold Clurman, I think is the name of the author of this quote. He said, "Make them laugh, and while their mouths are open, pour truth in."
Ooh.
And I think that's what
I love that.
I think it's what the bee does pretty effectively.
I would say so.
I would say so too. Yeah, that's. I think it's such an effective tool, and like you said, like laughter never hurts anything. It makes everything better. There's science behind smiling and laughter that,
it has healing power.
Yes. Yeah. Which is great. So we didn't even touch on that, but I love that aspect of what you do. So it was amazing.
Next episode. So you're coming back.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Next time we'll all pour whiskey and sip our glasses and talk about humor.
There we go. That's great. I had actually, I think the first time I heard you on a podcast, it wasn't Joe Rogan because I wasn't listening to him very regularly or anything, but on Blurry Creatures.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember Blurry Creatures?
I had no idea what I was in for on that one. I was so confused through all the entire conversation.
I think I remember feeling like that. Like
he's lost.
But I love that
I was lost.
We were talking about it earlier. I'm like, they start out every conversation with, "So what do you think about Bigfoot?" Yeah. So that was just.
I was not prepared to even answer. I didn't know anything about what I was getting into with that.
So with that one,
things without doing enough due diligence.
I love it.
Not that I wouldn't have done the show, but I would have at least prepared to answer some of those questions.
Because it's a total. It's very much a niche.
Yeah,
that's a niche audience for sure. But I had heard you on there at one point. It was a while ago. You did that.
The one interview you've seen. That's fine. Wow.
No, I've seen others, but I think that might have been the first one. And then you did great. Obviously, I knew who you were. I knew the Babylon Bee before that, but
okay.
Yeah. But I remember thinking he does not want to talk about Bigfoot. He
didn't expect that question.
It just to me, it's not interesting. I don't know. I never saw any good reason to think that Bigfoot might exist. So why are we a bunch of adults sitting around talking about it? I was in the wrong place to be having those thoughts and feelings.
Because it's entertainment.
Yes, definitely their niche. Yeah. So, but I love that you can go across all these different platforms and talk about so many different things boldly, but also with comedy and just
And representing Jesus
easily.
all along the way.
Yeah, all along the
Yeah.
way. Like, thank you for doing it with us. Like, I know we're small and
We are so honored.
we're so honored.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with you.
Yes. And thanks for checking out our episode about, alcohol before this. Next time you
course.
come on with your whiskey, like you said.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thank
Have a
you.
great day.
All right. You
Thanks.
too. God bless.
You
bless.
too. Thank you guys so much for listening into this conversation today. And thank you to Seth again for joining us at a distance to talk with us and just share your wisdom. We're so grateful. And we're grateful for you guys for listening in. This was a really fun conversation for us.
Definitely.
And just a chance to listen to what Seth had to say. So
That's right.
we're just wrapping it up now, though, because we had to let him go and do his real job.
Business.
Yes.
Stuff. Important
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
But before you guys go, don't forget to like this video, comment down below, and let us know what you thought of it. If there's anything that really stuck out that Seth said, or, that we said, probably him, because he's way
Probably
smarter.
him. Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe, because that's how you stay up to date on all of our episodes that come out every single Tuesday. Until next time, grab a shield. We'll see you out there.
See you guys.